So Erin brought to my attention that Tiff had came to her and said, for in the sake of time, if our meeting contains more than 10 participants, that instead of asking every single person the question, that if you have something important to say, you would raise your hand. And then if you didn't want to input, you didn't have to. It wasn't mandatory. I wouldn't like call on you. If it's under 10, in the sake of discussion, when Aaron and I first started this, we had a whole different set of group of people. And during that time, we did the hand raising thing. And people get like shy, or it just gets real weird. The conversation doesn't flow properly. And then, like, some people forget to raise their hand and they start talking. It gets funky. But I think it's worth definitely trying if we are over 10 at some point, which I really, attendance is so wishy washy. I don't think. Oh my gosh, Jameson, the glasses. I love them. I haven't seen you in them.
I very, very rarely wear them in public. Honestly, they're just blue light glasses because my migraines have been getting terrible. So I try to look at when I'm looking at a screen, I try to remember to wear them.
Oh, I love them. They look great.
Thank you.
Um, the migraine thing's happening in Columbus too. That's also over my Facebook. It might be like a pressure change in the weather. Um,
Billy, can I interrupt you for a second? Um,
sure.
your microphone sounds kind of muffled. I had that problem last week a little bit too, but it's worse this week. So your volume is fine, but I'm having trouble making out what you're saying, but I'm not getting that from anybody else. It's just yours.
Is that any better? I'm closer.
It's a
No?
little bit better.
Am I muffled to anyone else? No.
Really? Just me?
I'm sorry. Are you on your phone?
No, I'm on a laptop,
Laptop.
but I can hear everybody else fine. It's just yours.
I'm so
That
sorry.
was something to
So
do with your phone.
I switched my display and stuff so you guys could hear me a little better. I was hoping, um, and I'm very sorry. Wonder if you adjust your sound at all. Can you turn it up at all?
It's not the volume. The volume is perfectly fine. Like you even coming through louder than some other folks. It's just the clarity is muffled.
My air kicked off. Did that help? The air
I don't
No,
know.
no. I thought maybe that was muffling me. And anybody else having sound disturbances? Okay. Okay. Jenny, if you need anything repeated, put it in the chat and I'll say it again.
I can't use the chat on the laptop, but thanks anyway.
Oh, you don't have a little button at the bottom that says chat and brings it up on the
I mean,
right?
I can't physically type on a laptop, so
I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Raise your hand. Raise your hand and I will, or just kind of wave at me.
okay. Thanks.
I'll pay attention. Okay. So,
Thanks.
it's 7:54. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and start with what I was going to say before we got into the discussion. Um, I want to take a moment of silence for all those who suffered from the ramifications of the evils that occurred during the Holocaust and the generational trauma that remains today for those that were affected by it. Just going to take a little moment for them. Okay. The other important thing is, and I'll try to project my voice a little bit, it's really feminine and a lot of people have a hard time understanding me, so it's not just you. I want to preface with the fact that there's a tactful way to discuss this type of content. It's sensitive for a lot of people, and especially with how it applies to society today. The most important thing, I think, is to realize that there were people of both descents, of both Jewish and Aryan descents, who now did not take part in that. And we have to be really careful with where we put blame on people today. But back then it's totally different. And then finally, when we talk about things today versus then, I think the most important thing is that it is when we refer to these people, because now today they go by so many different names, they're called different things like white nationalists, far right, extreme Christian. Like there's so many things. If they're wearing a swastika, we call them a Nazi. I think it's a form of deception. I think it's a form of like trying to revert what they really are. So in this discussion, here, then or now, we're calling them Nazis because that's what they are. And then finally, a lot of people ask me, is this fictional history? Is there anything here that is fictional, or is it all nonfiction truth? So I went and did some research, and it's been vetted that it is all true. So it's based upon Gustav's journal plus Kurt's actual dialogue in an interview. So it's all true, 100%. Okay, because a lot of people say it seems a little fanciful the way that the hope comes in such a desperate time, but it is true. And then one last thing, thank you, Kristen, for picking such a profound story for us to read with something that is so important right now to prevent us from repeating history in such a horrific way. With that being said, I do know you read it a very long time ago, and if there's any spoilers past the point of where we've read, try not to lead us there. I know that's hard to do.
It'll be hard because it wasn't that long ago. I actually just read it in June.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
when I was on vacation. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, it is I've got
the good news is it is based on a true story, so unfortunately we kind of know how a lot of stuff ended, so it's not like there's any like big secrets or anything. So
yeah, I guess for what happens to them, the family and then especially Frisk and the dad, like what happens in their future and this what ends up with them is where I'm most concerned is spoilers. Other than that, though, the factual information is cool. And I think we are done with announcements at this point. And I'm still waiting on a few, but that's okay. If you guys are ready to start discussing, I'm ready. Are we good? Okay. I thought a really good place to start would be just to kind of open this as lightly as possible. Would you like to share any quotes or themes or things that really struck you that were like super important or hit you in the feels? And then since we are under 10, I'm going to organize you all in alphabetical order, and we're just going to go that way for now because we all know I can't remember how to do it without moving you. I am quite that unusual. Okay, there we go. All right, so we will start with Jenny. Did you hear me? Nope, Jameson. There you are, sneaking down there. Okay. Jenny's up here. Okay, and then Jessica. And Krista. You guys are so cute. I love your smile. Okay, we're good now. Okay, so we'll start with Jameson. Did you have any quotes or themes that like hit you or that you wanted to discuss?
I am reading it on an ebook this time, and so I don't have it in front of me for the quotes, but like I don't know, it just struck me as I'm reading like how, and I don't want to sound dramatic because it's not the same, but there's so many things happening now that I'm just like people look at you and say you're being dramatic, and I don't feel like we are. Like it didn't happen in Germany and in Austria, and it didn't happen there all at once. And I feel like it's not going to happen here all at once. It's slowly, and by the time you realize it, it's too late. And I think I will admit too, I've been super busy and I'm not as far along as I should be. I'm not real concerned about spoilers because like Kristen said, it's we kind of know where it's headed. But I just kept thinking like you always think like, what would I do in that situation? And it occurred to me, like, you would do exactly what you're doing right now. Like, that's what you would do. So I don't know. It just struck me that it's really not, it's the same concepts, I guess, that are being used right now.
It hit me the same way, especially when the people had emerged out of like nowhere. Like they knew there were some people there that supported the Nazi party, but then when you had like a leader that was encouraging them to come out, it was like you were flooded with them, which is very similar, like when the Capitol got stormed and stuff. Like I didn't know there was quite that many and they were that powerful. Like I get it. Like that hit me like these things are lurking under the surface, whether we know it or not. How about you, Jenny?
So one of the things that really struck me is how there was just so much resistance among other countries towards allowing refugees to come in. And I was surprised by all of it. And I was particularly horrified. You know, we've always heard about Roosevelt as being this phenomenal president and everything. And I actually highlighted where it said, Roosevelt's stance on giving a haven to refugees had withered in the face of America's growing anti-Semitism. Capitulating to popular opinion, the president had instructed the State Department to reduce the number of visas to near zero. No more aliens. I was just like, what? I was horrified. It just, you know, I kept seeing it prior to that. You know, first England was resisting, and then they let some of the children come in and a few others, and the Palestinians. But, you know, you hear somebody like Roosevelt was such an amazing president, and it's just like, well, apparently not. Like, that was just horrifying.
It's terrifying. It really is, genuinely. And I'm not a history buff, but maybe somebody here knows. Did the Holocaust precede the Statue of Liberty? Because the Statue of Liberty says, "Give me your tired, you're poor, you're worn down, you're laden." Like it invites these kind of people in. So was it standing and up when the Holocaust? It was. Okay. See, yeah, I really was shocked by that too. Like, I don't know. But you know, they had just gotten out of World War One. It was different. I'm trying to put myself in that situation, but I get it. I was shocked too, very, and disturbed by it. Jessica, how about you?
And this is all very fresh. So Jameson, I just finished reading like 15 minutes before the meeting started. It was a rough week. But the two things that really struck me are, despite how good I think my education was, I'm a dumb American who did not know a lot of things. You know, of course, American history really downplays how much we resisted and denied help and closed our borders and turned people away, because obviously that's what we want to do. But there are so many things that I was just ignorant about. And then two, something else that really stuck out to me is how important art and culture is, even in the face of despair, to human beings. It's mentioned by multiple characters, different ways in which art was important to them, either in the camps or, you know, Teeny longing for enjoyment, as she writes to Kurt, and being glad that he's getting some. So those are the two things that stood out to me.
I don't think it's through a lot of fault of our own how limited and distorted our history books were. I just wish as an adult, this brought it to my attention. Like I probably really need to start doing some self-education. Because my ideas of this was totally different. I thought we were offering like asylum.
Not until the very end.
So just it's terrible. And about all the devastation with some of them. Kristen, how about you? What really like stood out to you, or quotes that you really enjoyed?
Okay, I'm trying to reel myself back in because I do know like different parts of this. One of the things that I think that let me look at something just a second. So I'll be honest, I only got through like 3/4 of where we were supposed to read to, because I already read it before and I didn't have a chance to finish the rest of it. Have we gotten to the part where where they were taken to the camps? We've gotten to that part. Okay. So the part that really I think surprised me that I didn't even makes perfect sense, but I never even thought about was how just like slaves in the United States built most of this country, people in the concentration camps, whether they were political prisoners or then, Jewish descent or anything else that was basically on the Nazis' radar, built those camps and how they use them just like we use, African slaves and everything, just like we used enslaved people here to build this country. They would use them as long as they were good enough to be used, and then they would just discard them. That's really all that matters. So I don't know. I just found that really interesting. I don't know why in my head I had this idea that these camps existed and they just existed, and then they took these people and put them in these camps. I did not even think that they did not. And some of them did kind of already exist a little bit as political camps, right, for political prisoners, but they were nowhere near as big as what they needed to be in order to house all these people, in order to house all the, Nazis, people in their ranks and everything, their soldiers and stuff. They didn't have enough room for them. And I also then think about like the equipment that they had to use and how dangerous that equipment was and how tiring. The one part, like all I could think about is when they were doing some of the equipment is like, in like Greek mythology where they have the story of, I'm gonna get this wrong because it's been so long since I studied it, but it's the guy who's like forever in basically their version of hell where he has to roll the stone up the like hill and then comes back down. They have to roll back up the hill. That's all I kept like imagining and stuff. That's it. That's right, Victoria. That's all I could. I just kept picturing that and just that being like something that they had to do day in and day out over and over again. So I just found that interesting.
Yeah, that was astonishing that they literally had to build their own cage. And that I think they had to though, because it was sort of under the radar until Hitler took like full power. And I don't think they could like do these things I thought that though, until I started hearing it from their point of view. But I had assumed these were already prepared and ready and people were just going to be shoved into them. I didn't think they'd have to create them. How about you, Udi?
Yeah, they built so much stuff. It's insane. I have a few quotes that really got to me. I'm also reading off of an e-reader. It's my first time. So whoever mentioned the symbols at the beginning of the chapter or the beginning of the different point of views, thank you for that. That was cool. The one I got was no matter what occurred in the world, no matter how near danger might be, life went on. And what could one do but live it? It was at the very beginning of the book. It really stood out, and it's been a constant theme throughout the whole thing, because what can these people do except just live the life that's being handed to them? Like they're being forced to live this way because of fear, and it's really sad. I've read a few books on the Holocaust, so a lot of this isn't surprising, but each point of view is just insane how each different camp, they all went through the same thing.
I know.
It just blows my mind how they did that.
There was I believe, an ideal system trickled down from Hitler that went from each person that served him. And so it became like this blanket thing to just put all these people through this the most unbearable suffering. And yeah, but I think sometimes where we are right now here in the United States, sometimes I feel that way. It's like there's so much denial of what's really happening, and there's so much toxic positivity. There's nothing we can do but just keep going on. For me, the quote that stuck out the most was the mom. I can relate to her so much. I have so much empathy for her. I'm just devastated. And she had made a threat saying, if you do that, I'll turn on the gas and kill us all. That hit me so hard because I feel like if I was in that situation, I would have, if I would have known what was coming and the suffering that my family was going to have to face, I probably would have done that in our sleep.
Yeah, and the other quote that I picked was, "But always there was the smell, the odor of death," and that is like been a constant across anything I've read regarding the Holocaust.
Hmm.
And it just breaks my heart because the smell of death, I've smelt it, man. It's not pretty.
Yeah, it's devastating. How about you, Stephanie?
So, like everybody else, I had no clue that they had to build their own prison. But the one thing that shocked me was there was still kindness with some of the prisoners that were the head of all the other prisoners. I can't remember what they're called, but that that kind of brought a little bit of hope that there wasn't so much brutality. The whole thing, yes, there was a lot of brutality, but at least there was some glimmers of hope in there. Like with the guy reading the books to the prisoners, that was really sweet. And how that Leo guy got Gustav and the son, what's his name?
Fritz.
What Fritz, yeah, Fritz got him different jobs that would be maybe a little easier than the quarry. But another thing is, with Robert's job, we've went to the Holocaust Museum many, many of times, and you know, like you see all the pictures and you read a little bit of the story, but it's not the same as reading their hopes, their dreams, their feelings. That's what makes it hard. And that's my take on it. And then when Tinny said Kurt was her hope, he would have a new beginning in an altogether new world. Perhaps he would return one day and she would see a new person in his place, shaped by a life that was wholly strange to her. That had to be so hard for her to let her child go, but she wanted him to have a better life. And then there was another quote that was, where is it? The camaraderie I learned in Block 17 changed my life fundamentally, he would recall. I became acquainted with a form of solidarity unimaginable in life outside the concentration camps.
I know. Everyone asks me why community is so important to me and like why I do these like philanthropy things and stuff. I really think if we are as close, like everyone says, we're like a matchstick away from like complete collapse of the United States. And I think the only way to survive that, like mentally and physically, is community. And you can see they build their own like community within those camps. Like they're just trying to get through. It stuck out to me too. How about you, Victoria?
So I'm with the crew that has not gotten all the way through. I will say it's been a tough week. My sister, I was the only one who was aware that she was expecting, and she is no longer expecting as of this week. Unfortunately, she had a miscarriage. So
Oh.
I was like dealing with a lot of grief this week. And I also hold this like heavy grief too, because I just have to like kind of say it at the top here that reading this is like super hard for me. My family is Palestinian. My husband is Palestinian. My father-in-law is a Palestinian immigrant, born in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem, actually. So like just it like makes my heart race to read about what Jews went through in, 80 years ago that is still being perpetuated today against a different group of people by a different group of people. And in other countries, Sudan, Congo, you know what I mean? These things continue. And so one of the things that I highlighted was really early on, it said the United States recalled its ambassador from Berlin in protest, the president declaring that the news has profoundly affected the American people. I had difficulty believing that such things could occur in the 20th century. And now it's like, if it was disbelief and like we couldn't fathom it in the 20th century, and now it's like the name of the game in the 21st. And it's that just like really sat with me, just like kind of like how heavy that was. And just obviously building your own prison, like that is a a punishment that I cannot fathom. Along with the, the atmospheric everything else going around that, going on around them. And I just, the subculture that they had to develop that was already like one that they were like living, and then imagine like your your neighbors having to take over your business, and like it's just like, oh, I'll take it over now. And like, yeah, just to like hearken to 2024, and my family is like 16 acres of, or 16 hectares actually, of olive forest, like just taken by settlers, just like in a similar way. So it's just like, as much as this is like 80 years ago, this is still very much right now. And so I just want to say, like, I guess, like, let you guys know that so that you understand that I have that complicated lens on it. And so yeah, it was just harder for me, I guess, to like sit with it this week than I would have imagined. And um just yeah, I have so much. I truly I cannot fathom being such a hateful motherfucker as Adolf Hitler was, and the people who worked for him were, to like, it takes not only like like fear, but complacency and idolatry and like a bunch of other like terrible things wrapped up into a bunch of, into a pretty little bow to like let this happen. And just like to think about like being like a normal, you know what I mean, like everyday person, and like what you might have to sacrifice even just to like survive and like fit in and assimilate. It's just, yeah, there's a lot of, there's many layers here. So yeah, this is it's quite an account so far.
Well, first, I'm so sorry about no longer no longer expecting that near and dear to my heart. This is kind of a segue into the next question that I had for people, and I wasn't sure how to word it, but thank you so much for being so vulnerable and talking about it, and Jessica talking about her partner. The question that I had was, do you personally have any familial trauma related to the atrocities of the Holocaust? And if so, how has reading this affected you? With that being said, I think your point is really valid here, and one that I wasn't sure how to address, because I didn't want to give people like that fatigue of that it's still happening, and it's like insurmountably impossible for me to wrap my mind around that we keep repeating this hatred. And it just keeps it's like everybody's just sitting on the edge of their seat waiting for somebody to follow to in the name of hate. It just amazes me, and I know how sensitive it is. So I just was curious how it affected everybody personally, and if it brought up any feelings that are close to home. And clearly it hit you really hard. Like for me, my grandfather is Native American, so like there's a lot of that happened from him, from his own land and their jobs and their positions, but in the way that each individually one was affected is almost hard to like wrap our minds around. So I guess I just wanted to hear everybody's point of view. Do you have more? I want to start back with you, Victoria, and hear more about that answer.
Yeah, so I guess like other than the now stuff, that this like, feels like a time traveler journey again. We've had a few of those, I feel like, reads for me this year. My family were Polish Jews that they transitioned into Catholicism to escape to Nazi Germany and stuff like that. My Polish side of the family actually did emigrate to the US around that time. My Irish family was famine Irish that got colonized out of Ireland. So I guess like we've got the white colonizer thing going on, and then I've got the, you know, hated by the empire Arab stuff on the other side with Adam's family. So yeah, it's super fun. But yeah, I guess I didn't consider my own family's like what they had to do to survive. Like the Irish family assimilated their names to more American. The Polish, we don't even pronounce my name like it's supposed to be pronounced. It's actually supposed to be Chemshka. But yeah, if I if I said that to people, they'd be like, "What?" There's no CHs at the beginning, and Zemski is enough of a confusion for most people. So yeah, changed names and tried to move and change religions is the story I know about.
Wow. Wow. So I told Stephanie about this, like invited into her. My grandmother's father had been drafted into being a Nazi in the army because he was in Ireland. And I don't even know how any of this happened. And it's always been very conflicting for me. I never knew, but she knew about it and she carried that with her. I'm so far removed from it, I don't. But he was all blonde, pale, with blue eyes, like she was, and was forced to be in the army there, was drafted. So I try to have some kind of compassion of people who were forced to participate for Hitler or die. But yeah, and then her last name was O'Gary, but when they came to America, it's just Gary. And I don't know if they dropped it because of that, but that's a really good point in how we see things. But crazy. Stephanie, how about you?
So I talked with Billy about this a couple of days ago or yesterday or something. So I'm actually an army brat. I was born in Germany, and my family is actually from the province, or the, what do they call it? State, the state of, why am I blanking right? Yeah, Baden-Württemberg. Sorry, I don't know why I blanked. And that's actually where I was born, at that province, Baden-Württemberg. So my family came over before the unification of Germany, so before 1870, when it became a country. But it affects me because even when I was younger, kids were rude and they called me a Nazi when they found out that I was actually born in Germany, even though I'm an American citizen. And that just never sat well with me, that people think that I could actually be a part of something like that. That's not who I am. And I don't believe in the whole Nazi ideal at all. It's disgusting, and I just it just hurts a lot, and it's hard for me to read it because I'm like, why would my people do that? But they were forced into it, besides, like the SS and things like that enjoyed killing. So it's kind of, it's hard on me too.
You have to take into account too, for those individuals, what kind of societal conditioning was going on, like what kind of information were they being fed. We can see what's happened with a lot of people here, the things that were, since everything happened, you see a whole lot more, trying to be so careful. You see a lot more development of these type of people submerge. And I'm wondering if it's what information is being fed via media, being other resources like Facebook and TikTok and whatever. You have to wonder what our ancestors may have been being influenced. You just don't know, but there's still no excuse for this kind of brutality. In fact, I would rather, like I said, turn on the gas. That would have been my option, like on either side. Like I don't know if I could partake in it. I don't know. How about you, Udi?
I am definitely German, I know that. But from my biological side, my adopted side of it is Greek. Um, I don't think I really know anybody that participated anything like in ancestorial wise. I haven't dug that far back. I wasn't sure if I really wanted to, because of my birth father and what he has done. So I never really dug into that side. So my Greek family is all I've ever known, and they took me in with open arms. But I see what's happening in the world now, and I do see the relevance of what's happened in the past. And it's astonishing that this shit is still happening. Like, why are we repeating this over and over and over? I mean, they did it with Pearl Harbor too, with the Japanese. And it's, why are we doing this? Why are we locking up our own people?
I think
It's just people.
I think a big part of it is the denial of history, the denial of what really actually happened, so nobody can learn from mistakes that were already done until much later on. The lack of education, lack of resources, things like that. But there's just it's mind baffling. How about you, Kristen? Do you have
It
any
kills me.
creation? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It just breaks my heart. It really does.
Me too. How can it not? What kind of sociopath reads this sort of thing and isn't heartbroken over it? It's just, and what pulls you to this type of content, Kristen? Why did you find this book so compelling, and do you have any affiliation with it?
I found it compelling because I don't, this may not be a popular take, but I don't necessarily find, I'm going to try to choose my words carefully because I don't want to come off as sounding like I don't care, because I absolutely do, but I don't find what happened with the Holocaust, what happened with Japanese concentration camps, what is happening in Palestine to be that surprising because of social psychology. And when you look at how people interact within a group and when they don't want to be targeted as a part of a group think, and if you could put all those things together, I'm not surprised that it keeps happening. It just, you get money involved, you get politics involved, you get power involved, you get people not wanting to be different, you get just like targeting other groups and stuff. I just think that that's so inbred in part of human nature in some ways. And I'm not saying everyone's like that, and I'm not saying everyone has to be like that, but I think that enough of it happens under certain circumstances that it's not surprising that it continues to happen. And so it's sad, and I hate that it continues to happen, but I do think kind of what Jameson said is like what you do now. And I think to myself, like, if I was in that situation, I would like to think I would do things a certain way, but I'm going to be real with myself and also understand that I'm a selfish person. I'm a selfish person. So if it comes down to me or somebody else, and it's really like that truly life or death situation, I have to be honest and not think that I'm going to be some heroic and I'm going to do something that I don't think I would do. Like, I just got to be real about it because, and I don't think that I would necessarily have, I don't know. I don't know how I would have reacted if I was in those. I don't know if I would have had the balls to put my life at risk for those that are being targeted. I would like to say that I would, but I don't think I would have the balls to put my family and my life at risk for somebody that was not me. And I hate to say that, but that's just, I mean, I have self-preservation. And if the world is crumbling around me and things are as bad as it was then, but that's also looking back, because we can look back and be like, man, things aren't really bad. But when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't seem like it's that bad. You have stuff falling down from the skies and they're just leaflets. They're like, oh, they're just trying to get us to vote. And they're just trying to like, and it's so subtle that I don't even know if they would have necessarily really realized it was as bad as it was going to get until it got that bad. And by then things were already destroyed. But my family is 100% Jewish on my grandma's side. My grandma is 100% Jewish. I mean, not Jewish, sorry. My grandma on my one side is 100% Jewish. My other side of the family is 100% German on one side and on the other side. And that's on my mom's side and my dad's side. And then I also had some English and Irish thrown in there. So I think that my great grandpa on my dad's side was actually a Jewish orphan on some train or something that eventually made his way over to the United States and was on one of the orphan trains that they used to have going in like Pennsylvania, and he got adopted by some Quakers. Interesting story. Anyways, I'll stop talking now.
You made some really good points. I know that Jameson and I know for a fact, that's the only person I know in this particular group, but during the George Floyd uprising, I know we went and put our bodies in front of, am I muted? Am I okay? Can you guys hear me? Oh, did you too, Jessica? Did you go and protest as well? So we were trying to put as many white bodies, white appearing bodies in front of the Black people, African American people, the people of color of any sort, mostly female white bodies in front of them so that we could protect them so that they could still protest without getting severely harmed. So I know I would to an extent, and we were hurt. I mean, my eyes still aren't normal from the tear gas. I don't know if Jameson and Jessica's are affected. We got shot with rubber bullets. It was really serious. So I think I would. However, I can only endure so much pain and so much frustration before I just completely break down. I don't know how long I could have done it. It was about 2 weeks, and I was like completely spent and out of spoons. And I mean, imagine how long this endured for these people. But I do know I was on what I would consider a front line at that time, fighting for them. And then now, Jessica, now knowing you're taking that, and I'd like to hear more about that.
So this, I feel like there's like a kaleidoscope of ways that this touches things. I mentioned in chat, Diane's family is Jewish. On one side, she has a very similar story to Victoria's family. They're Polish Jews on her mother's side, and for their own safety, they converted to Catholicism. It was actually a dirty family secret that they were ever Jewish that Diane found out about later. As far as personally, myself, on my mom's side, her mother's family immigrated during World War I from Russia. Our whole lives, we thought we were German on that side. And that's because during World War I, it was not safe to say you were Russian. They changed their name from Ristov to Bristow, which was a little more Germanic. But that was another thing that it got unearthed during a genealogical project that an uncle did. On my dad's side, my dad is part Native American. He's also part Scottish. My last name, Cunningham, is actually a really rude ethnic slur that was used by the Irish for the Scottish that immigrated to Ireland during a particular period of a political upheaval. And it kind of stuck. So, it was like, oh, those dirty Cunninghams over there. It was just kind of a broad term. So yeah, I think we felt kind of oppression on both sides. I feel like it's really coming to like sharp focus now though. As you said, like with the George Floyd protests, I did a lot of like supply running as well as body blocking, but really where it hits the most home for me is my daughter is trans. All of my children are queer. I'm queer. I fear for our safety. We spend a good part of my daughter's therapy sessions putting in backup plan after backup plan after backup plan to make sure that she can continue to get her meds and she can continue to stay safe. My sister-in-law lives in Canada, and we'll see how things go in November. We may need to move, and we may need to move fast. And I can say, I feel like I would hate that. It would be terrible and it would be very nigh financially impossible, but I can't let them kill my kids. So, I mean, if it was just me, I don't know that I would feel so threatened, but I'll be damned if you get to kill my kids. Right? Is where I stand on the matter.
Well, as Kristen said, I guess I am selfish too. We've already spoken to a friend that lives in Canada that would sponsor us. So, yeah. How about you, Jenny? I'm so sorry, Jenny. I think you're muted, honey.
Sorry. Overlooked that. I mentioned in the question thread that I am Sinti Romani on my father's side. Thankfully, my great grandparents came to the U.S. quite a while before Nazi Germany, so there was no threat like directly in my biological family. I think what hits me more personally about it is not biological, but chosen family. My dearest friend in the world and my surrogate mom for 40 years, who passed away last January. She came out of a very, very unusual situation. She was a Holocaust baby. She was actually born in Auschwitz at gunpoint. And yeah, it was very uncommon for men and women to be housed together, but her father was a dentist and did dentistry for the officers. So they were treated a little bit better. I mean, not good, but a little bit better than most of the prisoners. But it affected her parents so much. It affected her so much. There were some other folks here that mentioned having family that had to change their names. It was a while after the war ended before they were liberated. And they eventually were able to come to the US. And when they arrived here, they had to change their names. They spoke very little English, but there was so much prejudice here still against both German and Jew. I thought it was interesting they mentioned in the book about that little segment that used to be part of Austria that had become part of Poland. That's where her parents were originally from. And so their native language was German. And that's what she grew up for her first 7 years of speaking German, and almost 8 when she came here. And when they arrived here, it was like, no, you can't speak German in public. Like, they didn't even speak it in their house. They just muddled through with whatever English they could manage. Thankfully, they did have cousins here already that were fluent in English that they were able to learn from. She shared with me a recording. This was really cool. Like nowadays, and I guess they're probably phasing them out with cell phones and selfies and everything, but there's photo booths that like we're probably all familiar with. Back then, they used to have recording booths because recording music wasn't something you could do on your own in those days. And when they arrived, like literally the day they arrived in New York from Germany, the cousins met them and were taking them around. And there was one of those recording booths, and they had her sit there and sing a song in German. And it burns a record. Like, burns is probably not the right term, but like burning a CD, but it actually makes a record. And ever since she passed away, I've been after her husband, please find that record, please get it digitalized. And he couldn't even remember what I was talking about. Now he can't find it. It's just, but I mean, so many things about how she lived her life, even though she didn't really remember the concentration camp that much. It was so generational because of how her parents responded to it. And so she was ill for many years. And I know from also being chronically ill that you have to pace yourself. You have to know your limits. You have to be careful. And she just had it like ingrained in her, because it was ingrained in her parents, that you have to work, you have to work, you have to work, you have to work. You can never stop working or you'll be judged, or this something horrible will happen to you. And so she constantly pushed herself and pushed herself. And then she would end up in the hospital. And then as soon as she was on her feet again, she would push and push and push and push. And I mean, if she didn't have that generational trauma, she would probably be somewhat healthier and alive today. And so I think that's where it hits me the most, much more than a biological element. Even though she's not biologically related to me, she's, for all practical purposes, my mom. So.
How about you, Jameson? Jameson?
Oh, sorry.
You're okay.
No, I
do that too.
misunderstood. Um, I it's funny. I have just started recently doing some research. I did a 23andMe profile, and some of the things that I was told my whole life were just not there. And one of them was that we were German. And then I get this profile back, and I'm not German at all. Um, what I was a little bit Jewish, apparently. I think it's Ashkenazi, is how it's said. And so I started asking these questions, but like, there's no one really old enough to know the answers without digging into. So a cousin of mine is actually trying to dig into the background of like, why were we told all this time that we were German? Why are these German names existing, but the DNA is not lining up? It's just not there. Um, and so now knowing some of these things, I'm wondering if that's not how it happened. I don't know that. I don't have any proof of it yet, but it was very interesting to me, because then on my dad's side of the family, we were also the potato famine Irish people. So, but on my mom's side, it's pretty interesting, because none of the things that my mom, my grandma, my great grandma have told me are actually existing in the DNA that any of us get back. So that's interesting, and I really want to dig more into that.
Something very similar happened to me too. My whole life, my grandpa told me he was from England and my grandma was from Ireland, and we never discussed any part of the Native American thing at all. And all my life, people were like, "Why is your hair so thick and so ethnic? Why do you have, these different type of features and things like that?" And I couldn't figure it out. I kind of thought like, where there was no explanation for it. And so I also did that and found that like a big portion of me shows the Cherokee Indian. And it's just like, I never got, and now they're gone. And I didn't get any answers. So I can relate in that way, but there was a shame associated with it and like a shushing of it. Um, it's just very complicated. Stephanie brought up two really cool questions that I hadn't considered that I'm so thankful that you brought to our attention. If you could follow your father or your mother as a young child, well, she was 16, so teen, in order to save them, would you go with them? And do you think the members of the family get reunited again? So that would be one that Kristen isn't allowed to answer. But I do want to know, with you being so vulnerable and letting us know that you're more selfish tendencies, would you stay behind? I'm also curious because of your complications with your parents. Like, you've been very open about that. So I'm curious. And we'll start back with James then.
I think I would be more likely to protect my kids. I don't know. I don't know. I think my parents would be more likely to look at me and say, "Get out and do what you need to do." I would like to think that I would, but it's kind of that you don't know till you're in the situation what you're going to do. Probably a little bit of that complicated relationship is sneaking in there as well. But I don't know. I'm like, I would absolutely protect my kids. I know that. But I've heard my mom say, a friend of my nephew's passed away last year. He was only like 17. He had cancer. And he fought really hard. They thought it was in remission. It came back. And my mom literally said, I would trade places with him if I could do it. And that's who she is as a person. So I know that what she would not do is let me sacrifice myself for her. But I feel that way about my kids. So I get it. I want to think that they're going to be reunited, but I mean, I read the Diary of Anne Frank, and I just don't have a lot of hope that that's how it's going to go.
Me too. My thoughts exactly. I read Night And so I'm very worried about it. How about you, Jenny? Would you follow one of your parents with them to protect them? And do you think the family will get back together?
My biological parents, absolutely not. They're horrible, abusive people and never protected me a day in my life. So I wouldn't have given them two thoughts. Not to sound cold, it probably sounds awful, but other people who have been more important to me in my life than I would have. Yeah.
Do you think the family gets reunited or?
Um, I mean, I don't think the whole family does, but I'm hopeful. And I didn't read up as far as y'all did. I only got up to, I think, chapter 7, so maybe there's more that I don't know about. But I'm really hoping that, I mean, it looks from the prologue as though the son got out, and we know that the one daughter, what was her name, that went to England and got married.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, maybe they somehow, because he knew that she went there, I think. So maybe he's able to find her there. Beyond that, I don't know, but at least I hope the two of them can be reunited, if nobody else.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Jessica?
I I feel like I already did that. Um, I feel like most of my childhood was in service of saving one parent or another, or I feel like I did a lot of enabling, a lot of covering. So no, I don't think I'd do it again. Um, I as far as the family being reunited, I feel like even beyond it being the Holocaust and the likelihood of survival isn't great, I feel like also record keeping is not great. Communication is not great. We don't have the ability to track people as well. So I worry that even the members who survive are going to have difficulty tracking each other down. I mean, Edith went and got married and they don't even know her married name, I don't believe. So,
How about you, Kristen?
I didn't follow either one of my parents anywhere. If I was younger and it was my grandma, I would have followed her. But I think she would have like not wanted me to like if she knew that if she knew that I was trying to follow her, then she wouldn't have allowed me to. Like she would have tried to figure out some way to make sure that I wouldn't follow her. And was that the only part you wanted me to answer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, just making sure.
How about you, Rudy?
You guys are adorable. My adopted parents, 100%, I would definitely follow them. My dad would probably say no, go follow your mom, and I would take his advice and I would follow my mom because she's a freaking saint, that woman. And then as for if the family gets back together, I think some of them do. Like as you guys pointed out, um, back then there wasn't a lot of ways to keep in touch, but she does know where she sent her son. She knows she sent her son to New York with, or Massachusetts or whatever it was, with her friend, and her friend set it up with the judge. So she knows that much at least. So I'm thinking maybe, hopefully, I would like the husband and wife to reunite and then eventually find their son. That would be my hope. But who knows? It's the Holocaust. It's not going to be pretty.
How about you, Stephanie?
So I saved my mom a lot of times, but I would still go in and save her again. And they would, my mom and dad would tell me, no, you don't go. But I'm stubborn enough where I would be like, no, I'm following you. We're going to get through this together somehow. And I'm really, really hoping that Kurt and Edith and Gustav and Fritz can all meet up, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I think at least I'm hoping maybe Edith will find Kurt, because if she can figure out, she knows who probably would have taken him. So I'm hoping at least that'll happen. I'm hoping Gustav and Fritz survive, but I don't know.
How about you, Victoria?
So I don't know that I'd follow my parents. Actually, it feels like such a complicated question to answer for me. Healed me would with one of them. So yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that one a lot more. As far as if I think the family will get back together, I mean, there's still 300 pages of book. So I'm assuming that there might be maybe like those kind of like ships passing in the night, like it's like, I spot a family member from somewhere. I'm not sure like how much time they're going to be spending together, so I guess we'll see. But I think that they probably will reunite in some ways, but it won't be forever.
Interesting. So with my bio mom and my bio dad, I would never, no. My grandmother, though, on the other hand, I would have walked through hell. I would have volunteered to die in place for her. I would have been like the Hunger Games sister. Like, I volunteer, tribute, take me instead. Like, no way, you're taking her. I would have put my foot down on that. So, and then I think there's a possibility that some are reunited, but I believe the mom says, or they say, when they had the family picture taken, that was in fact the last picture that they ever got together. So I feel like that was kind of like a little bit of like a way of leading us up to that this may not be a reunion, a reunion of some sort. So the very last question, there were so many wonderful ones in the chat. And if you guys would love to chime in on that, but just for the sake of time, I thought we would just end with two light things. So first is, do you have a character that you empathize or relate to most? And I'm just curious if there is somebody that's really pulling at your heartstrings, and we will start back with Victoria. You're muted.
My Zoom luckily warned me. It's like, you listen here, unmute your stuff. So I think the mom, actually, I kind of like relate to how I feel like she's calculating in some of the decisions she has to make. And like, yeah, I feel like I see that and I see her and I like really empathize with her right now.
Me too. My heart bleeds for this mother. It hurts that I don't even have children. And then Kurt and his innocence and how sweet he is and how like he still has hope he doesn't realize. And like at this point in the game, I'm really hurting for him too. How about you, Stephanie?
So, like you guys, I mean, my heart hurts for the mom and then what happens, and it's just really hard. But I would have to say I identify most with Fritz, because I would figure out any single way to have an advantage to get me and my family and I out somehow. So
I can definitely see that. How about you, Udi?
I agree. The mom, 100%. Like, I feel so bad for her and everything, but she's planning though. She is trying everything. So I'm hoping something that good happens to her.
Me too. She's a fighter. The rat babies are adorable. Is one in the bun? Is one in the bun?
No, she's not in the
Oh.
bun. It's just Big Mama
second.
really wanted to come out.
Yeah.
Minnie's being a butthole.
Oh. How about you, Kristen? I know you definitely have to have a favorite character.
I actually like Gustav. I think that just his the fact that he is such a hard worker, he will do whatever he needs to do for his family. But at the same time, it's like I wasn't expecting the depth of him and his understanding of needing to I think he knew document what was going on, but then also at the same time, like it was a way for him to process what was going on, but also like I think he knew deep down that this was like he needed to like that's why he made sure he had it with him wherever like no matter what was going on, he always had this notebook with him. And I just think like that depth is something that really speaks to me. Especially given that time and how men kind of are viewed and how sometimes they just to be honest are. He just strikes me as just a little bit different, even for that time period.
Yeah, I agree. I saw that in him too. His quiet strength, his way to stay stable and kind to the family, never raised his voice. He reminds me a little bit of Dee, your partner. So I'm not shocked at all that he's your favorite. How about you, Jessica?
Um, so I empathize with the mom, but also the oldest daughter. I I really feel like it was heartbreaking for her to have to leave, but she knew she had to if she wanted to survive. And then just her ability to kind of try and rebuild her life in England and kind of persevere and go on and continue to actually live, I think is really important.
That would be so hard. So hard. You're right. It's hard to think about her experience because she got away and she got free. But you're right, it would be a whole new set of challenges. I agree. How about you, Jenny? Do you relate to anybody the most?
I'm with Jessica. I think Edith, and I'm really hoping we get to see more of her. I mean, I know the main focus is supposed to be at the camp, but she had her own set of difficulties, obviously very different ones. Especially, after everything that her husband went through before they met, well, before they got together. And then the fact that, then he got arrested and was held again. I mean, just, and she's thinking, here it is all over again. Why are we even here in England when, in her eyes, it probably was the same exact thing happening that was happening in Austria. So, yeah, I really felt for her with that because I can imagine it being so shocking to escape and then experience something similar all over again. I didn't I want to say I don't like the mother, but there were a couple things, it's a couple decisions that she made that just sort of surprised me. Like when they were first talking about arresting the husband and he wanted to go hide and try to stay safe. And she made him promise to come home at night. Like, I don't know, that seems just really weird to me. I don't know. I mean, I guess you can't know how you'll feel about something until you're in that situation, but I didn't like that about her.
I think she gets to the point of just like absolute madness, desperation of her family crumbling before her. I think there's a few statements that she makes for me that makes me feel like she's past the point of like anything logical.
Yeah, that makes sense.
How about you, Jameson?
I'm gonna be the third one, but I just kept thinking like about Edith and how who I am as a person. I would probably feel guilty for the rest of my life that like and just feel like everybody was judging like you abandoned your family, but I don't know. It's you don't know what you would do till you're in that situation again. But I just keep thinking about her like she's never going to be the same person. Like there are things that happen in your life that like you're never the same person after this happens, and that's clearly one of those things. Like she's just I think it's going to affect her forever that she did that or that she had to do that.
For me, it was like she got out, but did she really? Like it's just gonna
Yeah.
take us forever, It's gonna be so hard to repair. Okay, so we are at the 9:01. I wanted to tell you guys that we're going to read until the end of chapter 18, which is called The Resistance. And then also, please, if you're in Ohio or anywhere that you're seeing Nazis, stay vigilant, stay aware, stay safe, please. And then I'm going to draw a name for the contest of National Book Lover Day really quickly. Oh, one's hanging out. Okay. Stephanie, you won. You get to pick if you want the book that you won in your result, or if you want some goodies like some merch stickers or book fun stuff. You let me know. I have your address. You just tell me what you would like. And then thank you all for showing up. I was afraid I was going to be the only person here. This is really, really challenging. And you guys were so respectful and kind and loving and happy reading. Thank you, Kristen, again for bringing our attention to such a big, important book. So you guys have happy reading. Good week. I love you all. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.